It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Niccolo Machiavelli, they tell you to look inward for peace. That serenity is found in quiet contemplation, in escaping the world's noise. They are wrong. Your mind is not a sanctuary. It is a battlefield, a constant theater of war where conflicting desires, fears, and ambitions clash without cease. To believe otherwise is to be unarmed, unprepared for the relentless skirmishes that define your inner landscape. This is not a call to despair, but to vigilance. The self-help gurus preach acceptance, but they neglect to mention the cunning adversary that resides within, the voice of doubt, the specter of procrastination, the insidious whisper of self-sabotage. These are not mere inconveniences to be meditated away. They are enemies to be confronted, strategies to be countered. You are not merely a passenger in your own consciousness. You are the general, tasked with commanding unruly troops, securing vulnerable territories, and ultimately winning the war for your own potential. The naive seek refuge from the storm. The competent learn to navigate it, to harness its power, and to emerge stronger on the other side. This requires a ruthless honesty, an unwavering assessment of your strengths and weaknesses, and a willingness to engage in the difficult work of self-mastery. Forget the platitudes of positive thinking. Embrace the stark reality. Your mind is a battleground. Prepare accordingly. The world outside is no less hostile. It is populated by individuals, each with their own agendas, their own desires, their own carefully constructed masks. To navigate this treacherous terrain, you must understand the principles of psychological warfare, the subtle arts of persuasion, and the importance of strategic alliances. Those who believe in inherent goodness are quickly disillusioned. They become pawns in games they do not understand, victims of manipulations they cannot detect. Innocence is a liability. Awareness is your armor. Observe the behavior of others with cold detachment. Analyze their motivations, identify their vulnerabilities, and anticipate their moves. This is not about cynicism, but about survival. The world rewards those who are capable, not those who are naive. Learn to read between the lines, to see beyond the surface, and to protect yourself from the hidden agendas that surround you. The battlefield extends beyond your own skull. It encompasses every interaction, every negotiation, every power dynamic you encounter. Arm yourself with knowledge, cultivate your strategic thinking, and prepare to fight for your place in the world. Complacency is suicide. Constant vigilance is your only hope. Your emotions, too, are weapons that can be wielded for strategic advantage, or liabilities that can be exploited by your enemies, both internal and external. Sentimentality is a weakness. Uncontrolled anger is a blunder. Fear is a paralyzing force. Master your emotions, or they will master you. Learn to detach yourself from the immediate impulses of your heart and to analyze situations with cold, calculating logic. This does not mean becoming devoid of feeling, but rather learning to control your emotional responses, to channel them in ways that serve your goals. A carefully timed display of anger can be a powerful tool of intimidation. A calculated expression of empathy can disarm your opponents. A well-concealed fear can lure your enemies into a false sense of security. Emotional intelligence is not about being nice. It is about being effective. It is about understanding the emotional landscape of the battlefield and using that understanding to your advantage. The naive wear their hearts on their sleeves. The competent conceal their emotions and use them as weapons. Choose wisely. Therefore, discard the illusion of inner peace. Embrace the reality of perpetual conflict. Your mind is a fortress under siege, constantly bombarded by doubts, fears, and temptations. The world is a chessboard, populated by players vying for power and influence. Your emotions are volatile forces that can be harnessed for strategic gain or exploited for devastating loss. To survive and thrive in this environment, you must become a master strategist, a ruthless observer, and an unwavering commander of your own internal army. This is not a passive endeavor. It requires constant vigilance, relentless self-improvement, and a willingness to confront the darkest aspects of human nature. The path to power is not paved with good intentions. It is forged in the crucible of conflict, tempered by adversity, and guided by a clear understanding of the rules of the game. Arm yourself with knowledge, sharpen your skills, and prepare for battle. The war for your mind and for your place in the world has already begun. Every thought is a potential casualty, every belief a strategic position to defend. The mind is not a sanctuary of tranquility, but a theater of war where reason and emotion clash, where ambition and fear compete for control. Understand that every external influence, every piece of information you consume, is a potential weapon aimed at your cognitive defenses. Your beliefs, your values, your aspirations. These are the territories you must protect from infiltration and subversion. The enemy within, your own self-doubt and insecurities, is often the most formidable opponent. It whispers insidious suggestions, undermines your confidence, and sabotages your efforts. Recognize its tactics, anticipate its moves, and deploy your inner resources to counter its influence. The strategies of psychological warfare are subtle and pervasive. Propaganda seeks to manipulate your perceptions, to distort reality and shape your opinions. Advertising appeals to your desires and vulnerabilities, creating artificial needs and exploiting your insecurities. Social pressure attempts to enforce conformity, to silence dissent and suppress individuality. Be aware of these forces, analyze their motives, and develop your own defenses against their manipulative power. Critical thinking is your shield against deception. Skepticism is your sword against falsehood. Intellectual independence is your fortress against conformity. Cultivate these virtues, and you will become a more resilient and resourceful combatant in the mental arena. The principles of military strategy apply equally well to the management of your own mind. Sun Tzu's teachings on deception, maneuver, and intelligence gathering are as relevant to personal development as they are to warfare. Know your enemy and know yourself. Understand your strengths and weaknesses and exploit those of your opponents. Deceive your enemies by concealing your intentions and projecting false appearances. Maneuver to gain strategic advantage, positioning yourself for success and avoiding unnecessary risks. Gather intelligence about your environment, your competitors, and yourself. Knowledge is power, and information is the key to victory. The art of emotional regulation is essential for maintaining control in the heat of battle. Fear, anger, and anxiety can cloud your judgment, impair your decision-making, and compromise your effectiveness. Learn to recognize these emotions as they arise, to understand their origins, and to manage their intensity. Develop techniques for calming your nerves, focusing your attention, and maintaining a clear head under pressure. Meditation, mindfulness, and cognitive reappraisal are powerful tools for emotional regulation. Use them wisely, and you will become a more composed and resilient leader, both of yourself and of others. The cultivation of mental fortitude is a lifelong process. It requires discipline, perseverance, and a willingness to confront your own limitations. Embrace challenges as opportunities for growth, setbacks as lessons learned, and failures as stepping stones to success. Develop a growth mindset, believing that your abilities are not fixed but can be developed through dedication and hard work. Surround yourself with supportive allies who encourage your growth and challenge your assumptions. Seek out mentors who can guide you on your path and share their wisdom and experience. Never stop learning, never stop growing, and never stop striving to become the best version of yourself. The battlefield of the mind is not limited to the individual. It extends to every interaction, every relationship, every social structure. Understand the power dynamics at play in these arenas and learn to navigate them effectively. Identify the key players, analyze their motives, and anticipate their actions. Build alliances, forge partnerships, and cultivate relationships that advance your goals. Be aware of the potential for conflict and prepare yourself to defend your interests. Negotiation, persuasion, and strategic communication are essential skills for success in these arenas. Master them, and you will become a more influential and effective leader, both in your personal life and in your professional endeavors. The pursuit of power is not an end in itself. It is a means to an end. Power is the ability to shape your own destiny, to influence the world around you, and to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Use your power wisely, responsibly, and ethically. Strive to create a better world, a more just society, and a more fulfilling life for yourself and for those you care about. Remember that true power comes not from domination and control, but from service and leadership. Serve your community, lead by example, and inspire others to achieve their full potential. In doing so, you will not only achieve your own goals but also contribute to the greater good. The war for your mind is a continuous process, a perpetual struggle against internal and external forces that seek to control you. There will be victories and defeats, triumphs and setbacks, but the key is to never give up, to never surrender your autonomy, and to never compromise your values. Remain vigilant, stay informed, and continue to develop your mental and emotional fortitude. The ultimate victory is not the conquest of others, but the mastery of yourself. It is the ability to think clearly, to act decisively, and to live a life of purpose and meaning. Embrace the challenge and prepare yourself for the battle ahead. Your mind is your greatest weapon. Wield it wisely. Consider the case of Marcus Corvus, a rising executive in a multinational corporation, a man seemingly destined for the very highest echelons of power. Corvus, on the surface, presented the image of a dedicated company man, unfailingly loyal, always available, the very embodiment of corporate virtue. He arrived early, he left late, he memorized the names of secretaries and security guards, and he exuded an aura of quiet competence that impressed superiors and intimidated rivals alike. But beneath this carefully constructed facade, a different game was being played, a silent war waged not in boardrooms and conference calls, but in the subtle manipulations of human psychology. Corvus understood that the modern corporation, despite its veneer of teamwork and collaboration, was still fundamentally a hierarchical structure, a brutal ecosystem where power flowed to those who could seize it and hold it. He observed, with the cold detachment of a predator, the vulnerabilities of his colleagues, their ambitions, their insecurities, their weaknesses. He noted the fragile egos of senior managers, the petty rivalries between departments, the unspoken anxieties that festered beneath the surface of corporate culture. He saw the battlefield and he began to plan his campaign. His first target was a rival, a charismatic and ambitious vice president named Julian. Julian was popular, well-connected, and perceived as a threat to Corvus's own ascent. Direct confrontation would be foolish, a frontal assault that would alert Julian and rally his allies. Instead, Corvus opted for a strategy of subtle undermining, a campaign of whispers and insinuations designed to erode Julian's credibility. He began by subtly questioning Julian's decisions in meetings, not directly challenging him, but rather posing seemingly innocent questions that revealed potential flaws or oversights. He leaked carefully selected information to influential figures within the company, information that cast Julian in a negative light, portraying him as reckless or impulsive. He cultivated relationships with Julian's subordinates, offering them discreet support and encouragement, subtly suggesting that Julian was not fully appreciating their talents. The effects were insidious but undeniable. Slowly, Julian's reputation began to erode. His confidence faltered, his decisions became more hesitant, and his allies began to distance themselves. Corvus, meanwhile, continued to cultivate his image as a reliable and competent executive, a steady hand in a turbulent environment. He volunteered for difficult assignments, he solved complex problems, and he made sure that his successes were visible to those in power. As Julian's star faded, Corvus's rose. He was promoted to a position of greater responsibility, giving him even more influence and control. Julian, demoralized and isolated, eventually left the company, his career in tatters. But Corvus's campaign did not end there. He understood that power was not a static thing, that it had to be constantly defended and expanded. He continued to cultivate his network of allies, rewarding loyalty and punishing dissent. He maintained a tight grip on information, controlling the flow of data and shaping the narrative to his advantage. He became a master of office politics, navigating the complex web of relationships and alliances with ruthless efficiency. He understood the power of perception, the importance of maintaining a flawless image. He cultivated a reputation for integrity and fairness, even as he engaged in Machiavellian tactics behind the scenes. He understood that the most effective lies were those that contained a kernel of truth, and he used this knowledge to manipulate and deceive his opponents. He understood that fear was a powerful motivator, and he used it sparingly but effectively to maintain control. His methods were not always ethical, but they were undeniably effective. He rose through the ranks, becoming a CEO, then a chairman, consolidating his power with each step. His success was a testament to his understanding of human nature, his ability to exploit weaknesses, and his unwavering commitment to his own ambition. The world he inhabited was a brutal one, a constant struggle for survival and dominance. And in that world, Marcus Corvus was a master strategist, a ruthless tactician, a silent predator who had learned to wage war in the minds of men. This is a microcosm of the broader world, a reminder that the battles for influence and control are often fought not with weapons or armies, but with words, gestures, and subtle manipulations of perception. Those who understand these dynamics, who can recognize the strategies of their opponents, are better equipped to defend themselves and to achieve their own goals. The ability to read people, to understand their motivations, and to anticipate their actions is a crucial skill in any arena where power is at stake. Cultivate this skill, hone your instincts, and prepare yourself for the silent wars that rage around you. The stakes are high, and the consequences of defeat can be devastating. The untrained mind is a fertile ground for manipulation, a field left unsown and undefended. Into this void rush the weeds of propaganda, the thorns of fear, and the choking vines of manufactured consent. The individual who fails to cultivate their own internal landscape, who neglects the rigorous discipline of critical thought, becomes a passive recipient of external narratives, a puppet dancing to the tune of unseen masters. This is not merely a matter of intellectual curiosity. It is a matter of survival. In the arena of human interaction, ignorance is not bliss. It is a fatal vulnerability. The skilled manipulator understands this principle intimately, seeking out those who are easily swayed, those whose convictions are shallow, and whose defenses are weak. They target the emotional centers of the mind, bypassing logic and reason to implant suggestions that take root and blossom into beliefs and behaviors. The constant barrage of information in the modern world serves as a smokescreen, obscuring the truth and making it increasingly difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. The individual who lacks the tools to navigate this complex environment becomes overwhelmed, retreating into the comforting embrace of simplistic narratives and echo chambers that reinforce their existing biases. This retreat is a form of self-imposed imprisonment, a voluntary surrender of autonomy and agency. The manipulator thrives in this environment, exploiting the individual's desire for certainty and belonging to further their own agenda. The pursuit of truth is a lifelong endeavor, a constant process of questioning, examining, and reevaluating one's own assumptions. It requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable realities, to challenge cherished beliefs, and to embrace the uncertainty that inevitably accompanies intellectual growth. Those who shy away from this challenge, who cling to dogma and reject dissent, become easy prey for those who seek to control them. The battlefield of the mind is not a static landscape. It is a dynamic and ever-changing terrain. New threats emerge constantly, new strategies are developed, and new technologies are deployed to influence and control human behavior. To remain vigilant, one must cultivate a habit of continuous learning, constantly updating one's knowledge and refining one's critical thinking skills. This requires a commitment to intellectual honesty, a willingness to admit when one is wrong, and a dedication to seeking out diverse perspectives. The rewards of this effort are immense. The ability to discern truth from falsehood, to resist manipulation, and to exercise true autonomy over one's own thoughts and actions. The alternative is to become a pawn in someone else's game, a victim of forces beyond one's control, a casualty in the silent war for the minds of men. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and the battlefield is within. The Machiavellian approach to this internal conflict begins with a ruthless self-assessment. Identify your vulnerabilities, the ingrained biases that cloud your judgment, the emotional triggers that can be exploited by others. This is not an exercise in self-flagellation, but a strategic audit of your mental defenses. Understand the terrain of your own mind, the pathways that lead to irrationality, the blind spots that obscure the truth. Only then can you begin to fortify your position. A critical component of this strategy involves cultivating a healthy skepticism towards all sources of information, including your own beliefs. Question everything, challenge assumptions, and seek out alternative perspectives. Do not blindly accept the narratives presented to you, regardless of their source. Verify, validate, and cross-reference information before integrating it into your worldview. This process of continuous interrogation serves as a constant firewall against manipulation and deception. Furthermore, the Machiavellian mind understands the power of information control. Guard your thoughts and intentions carefully. Do not reveal your vulnerabilities to those who might exploit them. Practice strategic ambiguity, revealing only what is necessary to achieve your objectives. In the arena of mental warfare, transparency is a liability. Your opponents will use your own words and beliefs against you. Maintaining a degree of opacity protects you from their attacks. Beyond defense, the Machiavellian strategy also emphasizes the importance of proactive influence. Understand the motivations and desires of those around you. Identify their vulnerabilities and leverage them to your advantage. This does not necessarily involve outright deception or coercion, but rather a subtle manipulation of their perceptions and beliefs. Frame your arguments in a way that resonates with their values, appeal to their emotions, and create a sense of shared purpose. By shaping their understanding of the world, you can subtly guide their actions in accordance with your own interests. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, an ability to empathize with others, and a willingness to exploit their weaknesses. It is a calculated and deliberate approach to social interaction, one that prioritizes strategic advantage over ethical considerations. However, even the most skilled manipulator must be aware of the risks involved. Overconfidence can lead to complacency, and a miscalculation can expose your own vulnerabilities. The art of manipulation requires constant vigilance, a careful calibration of tactics, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. Moreover, understand the power of preemptive action. Anticipate the moves of your opponents and disrupt their strategies before they can gain momentum. Identify their weaknesses and exploit them ruthlessly. Do not allow them to dictate the terms of engagement. Seize the initiative and control the narrative. This requires a proactive mindset, a willingness to take risks, and a relentless pursuit of advantage. The Machiavellian mind understands that victory in the mental arena requires a constant and unwavering commitment to strategic thinking. It is a game of chess, not checkers, and every move must be carefully calculated. The ultimate goal is not simply to survive, but to thrive, to dominate, and to shape the world according to your own will. The internalization of Stoicism will become a useful shield from the slings and arrows of opposition, as it allows a mental and emotional distance from any negativity that may be directed your way. This allows one to see things as they are, rather than how one might want them to be. The history of empires is a stark illustration of this principle. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization that rose to dominate the Mediterranean world through a combination of military prowess, political maneuvering, and strategic alliances. Its legions were not merely armies, they were instruments of psychological warfare. The sheer scale of Roman military might, the discipline of its soldiers, and the ruthlessness of its tactics were all designed to instill fear and obedience in conquered populations. But Roman power was not solely based on brute force. The Romans were masters of divide and conquer, exploiting existing rivalries between tribes and kingdoms to weaken their enemies and consolidate their own control. They offered citizenship to some, imposed harsh terms on others, and skillfully manipulated local elites to serve their interests. Their legal system, their infrastructure projects, and their cultural influence were all tools of soft power, designed to integrate conquered territories into the Roman system and create a sense of loyalty and belonging. Yet, even the Roman Empire, with its vast resources and its sophisticated strategies, eventually succumbed to internal divisions, economic pressures, and external threats. The seeds of its decline were sown in the very nature of its expansion, in the resentment of those it subjugated, and in the corruption and decadence that eroded its core values. The constant struggle for power within the empire, the assassinations and civil wars, the erosion of civic virtue, all contributed to its eventual fragmentation. This serves as a cautionary tale for any individual or organization that seeks to dominate through manipulation and control. Lasting power cannot be built on a foundation of deceit and coercion. It requires a degree of legitimacy, a sense of shared purpose, and a willingness to compromise and cooperate. The Machiavellian approach, while effective in the short term, can ultimately be self-defeating if it is not tempered by a sense of ethics and a recognition of the interconnectedness of human affairs. Consider, for example, the strategy of encirclement in warfare. A commander seeks to isolate the enemy, cutting off their supply lines and lines of communication, creating a sense of desperation and hopelessness. This is a psychological tactic as much as a military one. The enemy is not only deprived of resources but also of hope, their morale shattered, their will to fight broken. But encirclement can also be a risky strategy. If the encircling force is too thin, the enemy may break through. If the siege is prolonged, the encircling force may suffer from attrition and disease. And if the enemy is sufficiently desperate, they may launch a counterattack that catches the besiegers off guard. The history of warfare is filled with examples of encirclements that failed, leading to catastrophic defeats. The lesson here is that even the most brilliant strategic plan can be undone by unforeseen circumstances, by the resilience of the human spirit, and by the inherent unpredictability of events. The same principle applies to the mental battlefield. You may carefully construct a narrative, manipulate the emotions of others, and create a sense of control, but there is always the possibility that your plans will be disrupted, that your manipulations will be exposed, that your victims will rise up against you. The human mind is not a blank slate. It is a complex and dynamic system, capable of independent thought, of resistance, and of adaptation. The Machiavellian strategist must therefore be prepared to adjust their tactics, to anticipate unforeseen consequences, and to accept the possibility of failure. The ability to learn from mistakes, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to maintain a degree of humility is essential for long-term success. Furthermore, consider the power of alliances. In the game of power, it is rarely possible to achieve your goals alone. You need allies, supporters, and collaborators. But alliances are not always easy to form or to maintain. They require trust, compromise, and a willingness to share power, and they can be broken by betrayal, by conflicting interests, or by a shift in the balance of power. The Machiavellian strategist understands that alliances are a necessary evil. They are a tool to be used, not an end in themselves. They must be carefully cultivated, constantly monitored, and ruthlessly abandoned when they no longer serve your interests. The art of alliance building requires a keen understanding of human nature, a talent for persuasion, and a willingness to make concessions. It is a delicate balancing act, requiring both strategic vision and tactical flexibility, and it is a skill that can be honed through practice and experience. The mind, envisioned as a battlefield, is not merely a site of external influence, but an arena of constant internal conflict. Desires clash with duties, ambitions wrestle with anxieties, and the carefully constructed facade struggles against the raw, primal urges that lie beneath. This internal strife is not a weakness, but the very engine of human action. The competent strategist understands this and seeks not to eliminate the conflict, but to direct it. To harness the energy of these opposing forces and channel them towards a desired outcome. This requires a deep understanding of the self, a ruthless self-assessment of strengths and weaknesses, and a willingness to confront the shadow self, the parts of ourselves we hide from the world and often from ourselves. These shadow aspects, often viewed as liabilities, can be powerful assets if properly understood and integrated. For they represent the untapped potential, the hidden reserves of strength and cunning that can be deployed when necessary. But ignoring the shadow, pretending it doesn't exist, is a fatal error, for it will inevitably erupt, sabotaging your plans and undermining your efforts. Furthermore, the human mind is not a singular entity, but a collection of competing voices, each vying for dominance. The rational mind, the emotional mind, the impulsive mind, each with its own agenda and its own perspective. These voices are not always in harmony. They often contradict each other, leading to indecision, paralysis, and self-sabotage. The Machiavellian strategist seeks to orchestrate these voices, to align them towards a common goal. This requires a degree of self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand the different aspects of your own psyche. It also requires a degree of discipline, the ability to control your impulses and to resist the temptations of the moment. For the impulsive mind, driven by immediate gratification, can easily derail even the most carefully laid plans. The emotional mind, swayed by sentiment and attachment, can cloud judgment and lead to disastrous decisions. Only the rational mind, guided by logic and reason, can provide the clarity and focus needed to navigate the complexities of the battlefield. Consider the power of narrative. Human beings are storytelling creatures. We make sense of the world through narratives, through stories that explain who we are, where we come from, and where we are going. These narratives shape our beliefs, our values, and our actions. The Machiavellian strategist understands this and seeks to control the narrative, to craft a story that aligns with their goals. This requires a keen understanding of human psychology, a talent for persuasion, and a willingness to manipulate emotions. It also requires a degree of ruthlessness, the ability to suppress or distort the truth when necessary. For the truth is often inconvenient, and it can easily undermine even the most carefully constructed narrative. The strategist must be prepared to bend the truth, to exaggerate certain facts, to downplay others, and to create entirely new facts when necessary. The goal is not to deceive for the sake of deception, but to create a narrative that serves your interests, a narrative that inspires loyalty, motivates action, and justifies your decisions. This requires a delicate balance, a fine line between persuasion and manipulation, between truth and falsehood, and it requires a constant vigilance to ensure that your narrative is not undermined by competing narratives. Beyond internal conflict and narrative control lies the realm of perception. Reality, as we experience it, is not an objective truth, but a subjective interpretation. Our perceptions are shaped by our beliefs, our experiences, and our biases. The Machiavellian strategist understands this and seeks to manipulate the perceptions of others to create a reality that aligns with their goals. This requires a keen understanding of cognitive biases, the mental shortcuts and errors in thinking that can distort our perceptions. Confirmation bias, for example, leads us to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs, while ignoring information that contradicts them. The availability heuristic leads us to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled, while underestimating the likelihood of events that are less memorable. By understanding these biases, the strategist can manipulate the perceptions of others, steering them towards a desired conclusion. This requires a degree of subtlety, a delicate touch that avoids arousing suspicion. It also requires a degree of patience, the willingness to wait for the opportune moment to strike. For the human mind is resistant to change, and it will often reject information that challenges its existing beliefs. Finally, consider the power of time. The human mind is not static. It is constantly evolving, adapting, and learning. The experiences of the past shape our present, and our present actions shape our future. The Machiavellian strategist understands this and seeks to exploit the temporal dimension to plant seeds in the present that will bear fruit in the future. This requires a long-term perspective, the ability to see beyond the immediate horizon. It also requires a degree of foresight, the ability to anticipate future events and to prepare for them accordingly. For the future is not fixed. It is a range of possibilities, shaped by our choices and our actions. The strategist seeks to influence the future, to steer it towards a desired outcome. This requires a constant assessment of the changing landscape, a willingness to adapt to new circumstances, and a relentless pursuit of their goals. The mind, as a battlefield, is a theater of time, where past actions cast long shadows and future possibilities beckon. And the strategist, as the master of this battlefield, must learn to navigate the currents of time, to harness its power, and to shape its course. The art of mental warfare demands a symphony of control. The battlefield within is not a single engagement, but a perpetual campaign. It is a landscape of shifting allegiances, hidden agendas, and constant skirmishes for dominance. Every thought, every emotion, every memory is a potential weapon to be deployed with precision and intent. The strategist understands that the mind is not a blank slate, but a complex tapestry woven from experience, belief, and desire. To influence this tapestry, one must first understand its threads, its patterns, its vulnerabilities. This requires a keen eye for detail, a capacity for empathy, and a willingness to delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche. For the most effective weapons are not always the most obvious. Sometimes, the subtlest suggestion, the most carefully crafted narrative, can have the most profound impact. The goal is not to shatter the mind, but to reshape it, to mold it to one's will. This requires not brute force, but finesse, not coercion, but persuasion, not manipulation, but influence. To truly conquer the mind, one must become a master of language, a weaver of stories, a shaper of dreams. One must learn to speak to the deepest desires, the hidden fears, the unacknowledged needs that drive human behavior. For it is in these hidden realms that true power resides. The strategist does not seek to control the mind through fear or intimidation, but through understanding and connection. They seek to build trust, to establish rapport, to create a sense of shared purpose. For it is through these bonds that influence becomes truly potent. But trust is a double-edged sword. It can be a powerful tool for manipulation, but it can also be a vulnerability. The strategist must be wary of their own emotions, their own biases, their own susceptibility to influence. For the mind is not only a battlefield, it is also a fortress, and it is constantly defending itself against intrusion. The strategist must be patient, persistent, and unwavering in their pursuit of dominance. They must be willing to endure setbacks, to learn from failures, and to adapt to changing circumstances. For the battle for the mind is a long and arduous one, and there are no easy victories. The most successful strategists are those who possess not only intelligence and cunning, but also resilience and fortitude. They are those who can withstand the constant pressure, the relentless attacks, the inevitable defeats, and emerge stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever before. They understand that the mind is a fragile thing, easily broken, easily misled, easily manipulated. But they also understand that it is a powerful thing, capable of great creativity, great resilience, and great strength. And it is this potential for greatness that the strategist seeks to unlock, to harness, to control. The pursuit of mental dominance is not for the faint of heart. It requires a willingness to confront the darkest aspects of human nature, to embrace the uncomfortable truths about power and influence, and to make difficult choices in the face of adversity. But for those who are willing to pay the price, the rewards are immeasurable. The ability to control one's own mind and to influence the minds of others is the ultimate form of power. It is the key to success in any field.